Hi everyone, this is Nick Pollock here from Roar Lions Roar. While you're here, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that alert bell so you never miss any of our new content. And if you prefer to listen instead of watch, make sure you check us out on your podcast platform of choice where you can subscribe and download each new episode. Thanks for watching and thanks for listening. Go State! Hello everybody and welcome back to Roar Lions Roar. I'm your host tonight, Nick Pollock, and I am joined not by one of my normal co-hosts, but instead by Ryan Snyder of On3, Blue White Illustrated on On3. Ryan, what's up, man?
Not much, man. Good to be on. I think last time we did this was around signing day. First off, shout out to those Seattle Mariners. I know you're a big Mariners guy, so I like to stay up late night and watch some late night baseball myself. So I was always thinking of you watching Julio Rodriguez tear it up this year.
Oh, he's so much fun, man. He's a blast. I truly can't believe they have him locked up until he's dead, basically. I love that contract.
You should, as you should.
So in case you don't know Ryan's work, I don't know how you couldn't, but if you follow anything he's done, over his entire writing career, I think you know by now that we're here to talk about recruiting, and that's something we haven't really gotten a chance to talk about much here on Roar Lions Roar since we, shifted over into full-time podcast mode. So we're really thankful for you, Ryan, for being able to take some time out and update our listeners on what's going on in the world of Penn State recruiting. And I think the place there where we should start is the 2023 recruiting class. A really, really talented class. A lot of dudes all over the place. Highly rated class. So, just what are your overall thoughts on, on what James Franklin and his staff have put together in that group?
I think it's a strong class. I give it like a B plus-ish. Obviously, like to me, if you're going to have an A plus kind of class, you kind of have to have a top 5-ish class. You got to have some 5 stars. They don't have that this year, but they're incredibly deep with 4-star talent. I mean, I forget the number off the top of my head. I think it's like 13 or 14, something like that. And if you can consistently get 15 or so 4-star guys, I mean, you're talking about a class that would stack up there with the very best. Obviously, last year's class was pretty much the very best, and then you have that 2018 class as well. But it's not as top loaded with the denied Dennis Suttons, the Nick Singletons, and all those guys of the world. But the depth of talent, like I said, 14 or 13 or so 4-star guys. I think that ranks up there with pretty much the best of really any of them, if it's subtracting a couple of those 4-star guys. So it's a good class, a lot of depth. They got to keep it together, which they're doing a good job with. Obviously they lost to Marion Parker. That was a big hit. But the Kari Nelson's stuck on board. Yeah, you got the Florida I almost said Florida Twins. I don't know why I said that. The Florida defensive backs, of course, Conrad Hussey and King Mack. They were just up this past weekend for the Whiteout, so that's a positive sign. There's a lot of talented guys that schools want to poach, and here we are going into November, about 6-7 weeks out. Haven't seen any guys popping up on other campuses or anything like that in recent weeks. So it looks like Penn State should get this over the line, and if they can add a couple guys too, which we still expect them to do, it'll be right there at top 10. I still think it's going to finish a little bit outside the top 10, but it's going to be right there on the bubble.
Since you mentioned his name, and I know that fans will want to know, do you see any scenario where you could see Parker jumping back on board?
I think it's unlikely because I think Clemson is I know Clemson is a school that he really wanted. Like, for example, when he decommitted, he didn't have that Clemson offer. And he decommitted for whatever reason it is. But I feel confident saying that if Clemson would have offered and he was still committed, you still would have ran into some issues. Like, that's how bad he wanted a Clemson offer. All signs seem to be pointing there right now. I'd have to lean in that direction. I mean, all of my coworkers, I think, now have picks in for him to end up at Clemson. And really, I kind of thought it would be done by now, if being honest. Maybe we'll keep an eye out for a Penn State visit, but it really just, Clemson and everybody else right now.
I feel like I remember seeing on Twitter that he was at Clemson this past week. I think I saw.
I honestly, I'm trying to track down the 130 kids that were here this past weekend. So he may have been. Actually, I think it was, I think you're right, Nick. Yeah, I think he took an official visit this past weekend. I think that's what it is. So, yeah, you can ask me about, normally I can rattle that stuff off pretty easily, and not, especially between Whiteout and Ohio State week. I'm a little scattered right now.
You heard it here first, folks. I had something, some recruiting news on tap quicker than Ryan did. So, thinking about this 2023 class, then Ryan, who is a name that Penn State fans should be looking out for as somebody who, maybe is a little bit under the radar as opposed to like the top of the top blue chippers in the class? Like, who's somebody who you could see, either someone who's under the radar because you think they could make a quick impact, or someone who you just think has a really high ceiling long term?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's always a couple guys, and I'm always a coward, right? Like I can never just pick one. When you have relationships with all these guys, you kind of, it's just hard to pick one. I'll leave it at that. But so I think a lot of people are noticing Andrew Rappleyea right now, and you should be. I mean, his film is as impressive as really any of the last couple tight ends that have come through this come through this university. Going back to Freiermuth and Gesicki, and obviously they all have different things that made them special. But when you just look at the film and the play he's producing, Rappleyea has to stand out. But where I'm actually going with this is, don't sleep on Joey Schlaffer too. Joey's putting together a really strong season. He's making. What's great about Joey is he just makes these high pointed catches like look so easy all the time. And as we've seen with the fade routes to Parker Washington at times, that's something they're missing, right?
Yeah.
So I want to make sure people are not overlooking Joey too much too, because I went and watched him play the other week. Exeter's 9-0. They're going to be deep in the playoffs this year. I'm going to go see him another couple times. And really, I've seen Joey, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 or 5 times now. And just every game I go to, he's making special plays at special moments, right? So just he has a knack for that, and I think it's important that just fans don't sleep on him. I'd also just have to mention Anthony Donko. You have Javen Williams, right? You have Birchmeyer. I mean, those guys are elite for a reason. They're guys that I don't think they can come in next year and make an impact, but they really have the potential to be guys that come in and make an impact early, whether it's in 2 years or whatever. But Donko's progression this year has really stood out to not really just even me, but Charles Power, who does scouting way better than I can ever do it. So I think that's something good to watch. I went and watched Donko against Birchmeyer a couple weeks ago, and he's always had that raw ability, but he's really starting to just put it together now. He's really learning to not just use his 6'5", 315 frame to push guys around, and instead, learn how to use leverage and beat guys in other ways. Because obviously when you get to this next level, it's not just size that's going to do that. So a lot of guys too. I mean, Dakari Nelson's having a heck of a year. I think I forget what his interception count up is to now, but it's like 5 or 6. I mean, it's really making a lot of big plays. There's a lot of guys, but of course those guys are all 4-star talented guys too. I mean, Tony Rojas is probably having the most impressive season of anyone, but I think everybody knows that Tony, is a really highly talented guy. So my pick would be Schlaffer and Donko, but don't sleep on Jackson Smolik too. I went out. One thing I'll say is I went out to see Smolik this year, and I never go like that far for trips. Yeah. And of course, the game I went to was like, I think they ran the ball like 50 times. Right? So that was, I was bummed about that one, but the stats he's putting together over recent weeks, really impressive. Just making smart plays consistently, right? And I think everybody expects Drew Aller to be the quarterback here in the next year or two. And obviously Smolik has still a lot of progression to do, but whenever you're seeing guys make smart plays all the time, this was like with Bo Prabula too, who by the way, people are raving about inside Penn State's program. Just guys who don't make silly plays, make smart plays consistently. Those are the kind of players you want as your quarterbacks. And Smolik's really rose to the occasion, and he's going to take Dallin Catholic deep in the Iowa playoffs this year, which, by the way, Iowa has some better players than I ever realized. Smolik being here, or being committed to Penn State, I've never really looked into Iowa, recruiting from perspective. There's some really talented players out there. I got to see that when they played Ankeny earlier this year, and I've just researched it more, and just there's some better talent out there than people think.
It's all that farm strength. That's what they got in spades. Yeah.
they got plenty of that, but they got some playmakers too, man. I'll spare the details and the stories, but just watching him play against Ankeny this year and the players on his team too, it's just an underrated state, or at least it's a growing state as far as talent. He's playing some quality players out there.
Awesome. Yeah, I don't miss living in Virginia. Virginia was a perfectly fine place to live. I enjoyed my time there. But I'm very happy where I am now. But I am disappointed that the school that I coached baseball in Virginia, W.T. Woodson, is in Fairfax. They would have played Tony Rojas several times. So disappointed I couldn't get to see him live, but so be it. So, Ryan, who are some guys that you think Penn State is still going after? I know you mentioned that they're going to look to add at least a couple more guys to fill out this 2023 class. Who are some names that we should be watching?
Yeah. So when I look up and down, their scholarship charts and what to keep an eye on here moving forward, I think three positions stand out the most. With London Montgomery's injury, added in the fact Devin Ford's transferred out, you got two young freshmen taking over. Who knows what will happen with Keith Lee long term? Running back is now an important position, and I if you follow me on the boards, like for the longest time, I was like, they don't need another running back, and it was so naive of me to not think that two freshmen are going to come in here and make an impact, and it's going to shake up the whole room. So it was just a looking back when I'm talking about that in July, I was like, oh, that was silly, Ryan. You should have known that was going to happen. So anyway, keep an eye on Christopher Johnson out of Dillard in Miami, Florida, or Fort Lauderdale, excuse me, same thing. But 4-star quality prospect. It's just all about getting him on campus for an official visit. Can Penn State get him here for an official visit? That's the goal. That's what the staff wants to do. But it's just not going to be easy. Miami's considered a heavy favorite. You got some other schools like Ole Miss and even Utah, I think, is in the mix there too. I think he took a visit to Utah earlier this year. So I don't know. We'll see. But he's a guy that I know pretty much would, if Snyder could get any running back right now, he would be the one. Keyshawn Blackstock, another player to keep an eye on. Junior college offensive lineman. I forget the school off the top of my head. I apologize. But one of those Kansas junior colleges out there. I am expecting Blackstock to take an official visit to Penn State. So let's keep an eye on that. Of course, he's a junior college guy, so most likely it won't be until December. Maybe it goes a little – actually, I think he'll be an early enrollee, so it would have to be, I believe, in December. So we'll keep an eye on that the first couple of weeks. I know Troutwine went out to see him during the bye week. A lot of positive things there, from talking to people, and the relationship seems pretty strong. So keep an eye out. And then also a couple others. Joseph Mapui is a good quality defensive lineman from St. Thomas More. If you guys followed Nicholas Harbor, he was Nicholas Harbor's teammate last year. And really, Mapui came here to play basketball. He started playing football. And then everybody was tuning in to watch Harbor last year. And that's how Joseph Cannon came on the scene. So he's now at St. Thomas More, has about a dozen. St. Thomas More is a private school in Connecticut. He has about a dozen quality scholarship offers right now. I think Auburn, Ole Miss, Virginia Tech, Penn State, they seem like the four schools to keep an eye on. Let's see what happens there. And then, of course, the thing I'll stress, though, to everybody is just that the coaching carousel is about to throw a grenade into all of this. And who knows what's going to happen here in the coming weeks. So I really think that probably by the end of November, we're talking about some guys we're not talking about at all right now. Penn State does a good job at, not poaching players, but finding players who are, starting to look over the fence and trying to find someone else to, with their coaches in turmoil. And I wouldn't be shocked at all if they try and poach one or two guys. So I think 23 is where the class makes the most sense. But if they get to 23 and there's some top guy out there that they have to have, no doubt they'll find room for 24. I think 25 is going to be a little bit hard in this class. But again, if there's quality guys, they're not going to leave them out there.
Gotcha. Real quick, we're going to pay some bills here. If you have not already visited homefieldapparel.com, what are you doing? First of all, come on. They have amazing shirts, amazing crew necks, really amazing everything. But you've listened to this podcast before, you've heard it before. You know that they have the most unique and comfortable and just well thought out designs in the game. You truly can't find anything like their quality anywhere. Wonderfully comfortable t-shirts, not like that 100% cotton stuff you're going to get in downtown State College. As much as we love McClanahan's and Family Clothes On and all that, much better quality. If you have never ordered from Home Field Apparel before, you can use the code ROARLIONS, ROAR, all caps, all one word, at checkout for 15% off of your first order. It doesn't have to be Penn State stuff. You can get anything. You've heard from Matt Flip on the podcast. He's got shirts from about 15 different schools. I've got my Penn State stuff and my Wazoo stuff. Ryan, do you have any Home Field stuff?
I have a Hawaii shirt. It's awesome.
Nice.
Like the old rainbow logo. I do love it.
Yes.
I need to get some more, but I've rocked that Hawaii shirt for years now.
Yeah, I am a big fan of getting Hawaii stuff from Home Field, especially because, having been to Hawaii a couple times now, the stuff that you can actually find like that they sell on their own is really not that great. So take advantage of Home Field where they actually have some like fun designs for them. But that goes for everyone. We've talked about the Penn State stuff, really cool designs, stuff you'll find that they found like digging up in old yearbooks. Like you just won't find it anywhere else. So once again, use that code ROARLIONS, ROAR, all caps, all one word at checkout. 15% off of your first order. They're great people to work with. We're big home field fans here. All right, Ryan. So, I think one of the spectacles of the college football season every year is always the Penn State Whiteout for, tons of reasons. Usually a night game, cool environment, the obvious spectacle of the Whiteout. But if you were paying attention, if you were in the stadium, you may have noticed James Franklin working his way down, probably 20 minutes worth of handshakes down the sideline before the game.
Yes.
And that's because every single year when the Whiteout happens, Penn State has basically the equivalent of a small army of recruits in town to check out the game. I would not be as foolish as to ask you to tell me something about every single kid that was in town, but let's just pick out, the highlights. Like, who are the names that you noticed in each of the groups that we'll go through? Like, who are the names that you were either surprised to see make it in town, or was just pleased to see them follow through, or, anyone move or shake or stuff like that. So let's start with the 2023 group. Were there any notable names in town from that class?
So, first off, what I would share too is this year was 130, a little over 130 total players. 52 of them are uncommitted and hold a Penn State scholarship offer. So when you add in, I don't know, I think it was around 16 to 18 committed players. I mean, you're talking about 70 guys there who have the opportunity to play at a school like Penn State. And then there's going to be guys there that are young too, like 2025, 2026 kids who are going to get a scholarship down the road. So realistically, out of 130 players, probably a little over 80, maybe even as many as 90 of them are going to play Division I football somewhere. So that stacks up. I can't find, I'm trying, literally, I spent last week trying to find a school or a game. I was looking at like the Iron Bowl, the Michigan, Ohio State list from previous years. I've been trying to find lists that stack up against this, and I just haven't been able to do it. So, I don't know if I'm sure there's something out there, some other games I'm not thinking about that maybe have something like that, but 130, when you're talking to 60, 70% of that 130 quality prospects, it really does stack up there with any recruiting list in the country. So I think fans, I spent a lot of time working on that last week, so I want to get that out there, put it that way. So I guess what I would say as far as guys who showed up in the 2023 class that stand out, really there was 3 of them, I think, for the most part. I hit on Joseph Mapuy already. Like I said, I mean, he's going to be someone I think Penn State keeps a very close eye on down the stretch. The other 2, Kavion Keys, linebacker, committed to North Carolina. He's out of Varina in Virginia. And then you had Devin Hyatt, who's a quality wide receiver. His brother is Jalen Hyatt at Tennessee. If you watched that Alabama game a couple of weeks ago, you know who I'm talking about. He's out of South Carolina. He plays at IMG Academy now. So, with Kavion, Penn State was 1 and 2 down the stretch. A very important player for them. That he ends up going to North Carolina, but coming back now, it's very clear that Penn State's still in the mix. I'd be lying if I said, I really have a good feel for where Penn State's at now, 4 or 5 days after this visit. Kavion just doesn't talk much, and everything I get from some sources is just, hey, we're in it. We're going to keep fighting here. Let's see how it works out. So you got 6-7 weeks. Penn State would love to switch him. They don't really need a linebacker, but he's one of those kind of +1 guys where just too talented not to take. So we'll see how that plays out. And then with Hyatt, I don't think anybody knows where Devin Hyatt is leaning. I think people have been assuming for a long time it'd be Tennessee because of his brother, but he's just not a guy who really opens up much. And there's not too many coaches at IMG that really open up to recruiting reporters and things like that. So this one's kind of totally up in the air. There's South Carolina's in the mix. I think like Kentucky and Auburn, a couple other schools, but Hyatt feels like a guy that just nothing would really surprise me, I guess.
Interesting. So, if you couldn't tell by what Ryan was saying there, the Whiteout during so we're in the 2022 football season now. This is not really the game for 2023 recruiting. It's really about 2024 recruiting and all, when you consider the full scope of things. So, what's kind of the lowdown? And if you want to get the full scoop on all the things happening here, and obviously I'll let Ryan plug his stuff at the end, but if you're not already, active on On3, Blue White Illustrated over on On3, please make sure you get over there and check out all the things that both Ryan and Sean Fitz write, because that'll be the best way to get all this information about these 2024 guys. But Ryan, what are kind of the names to know from that class coming out of the Whiteout?
Yeah. So out of those 52 uncommitted guys, about 40 or so were from that 2024 class. I mean, this event is for that 2024 class. This event leads to junior day visits, which leads to spring practice visits, which leads to commitments or last bashes and then commitments, whatever it may be. But this sets the tone for commitments and multiple visits down the road. I was looking at last year's last bash list. Excuse me, hit my camera there. And I think it led to, I want to say it was 8 or 9 guys who visited last year and then ended up being part of this class at the time. So it's going to have a big impact moving forward. A couple guys who grabbed my attention: Anthony Specca, linebacker out of Central Catholic. What's notable about Specca is I think Michigan and Penn State are the top 2 schools. Obviously, he was at the Michigan game 2 weeks ago against Penn State. Not a good performance, but getting him back, so quickly, spend time with the coaching staff. He even had a little talk with Franklin in an office before the game. You don't see that a lot. So he's just an important prospect that Penn State really has to land. I think getting him back was big. For the longest time, I have kind of felt Michigan's guy has a little bit of edge. Talked to him the other day. I feel like this is truly 50-50. So I was wondering if that Michigan game would maybe hurt Penn State from that perspective. But really, I think I don't want to say it helps, but he sees the need, along the defensive front and linebacker. So from that perspective, it's not too bad of a thing. Speaking of defensive linemen, Ernest Willer out of IMG Academy, Brian Robinson out of Austintown Fitch in Ohio, 2 quality 4-star prospect guys. I mean, Willer's I think one of the best defensive line prospects really in the country. I think as he continues to grow and progress at IMG, I think he's really just going to keep moving up in the rankings. He's originally from Baltimore too, so there's a good relationship there. From Penn State, he's visited a couple times over the years. Brian Robinson has offers from really anybody. I think Penn State should end up being like a top 5 or so school, but he's got all these guys have a really long way to go, so I don't want to overthink it too much. Speaking of IMG, Ellis Robinson, another guy who's from the Northeast, now down in IMG. Ellis Robinson is a true 5-star prospect. We have at number 2 in the nation right now at On3. He's number 6 in the On3 consensus, which if you don't know the consensus, it takes 24/7, ESPN, On3, and Rivals, weighs them all equally. So 25, 25, 25, 25. And, that's how we get that. So it's truly like the industry average weighted out. So number 6 in that, number 2 at On3. I mean, he is one of the best players in the entire country, originally from New Haven, Connecticut. The issue is that Alabama and Georgia seem to be the front runners there. And Penn State beats out those schools occasionally, but it's not often. So as of right now, you have to think it's going to be tough. But he's very close with Terry Smith. I feel good in saying Penn State's going to probably be a top 5 school. And if he lasts that long, they could probably get an official visit. But again, when you're going against the nation's 2 best programs consistently, not easy to do. And that's the negative of these Northeast guys going to IMG. We talk about this all the time on the message boards. It's good from a progression standpoint, right? I mean, these guys are going to get challenged, but then you also know that all those SEC schools are gonna flock on them. So the vultures, as it is. So anyway, Jordan Marshall's another quality running back out of Archbishop Moeller, another 4-star guy. We have number 45 in the nation. Marshall has offers from just about anybody. This was his first visit. He's a guy I still need to catch up with still. But the fact that Penn State just offered him, I think, a little less than a month ago, and then he comes out immediately for a visit, positive sign there moving forward, especially because if they can't get a running back in 2023, they're gonna need at least 2 probably next year. So there's a deep pool of running backs next year, but he's probably the top guy, as far as skill and all that right now, at least in my eyes. Just a couple others too. Chris Jones is a quality linebacker out of Virginia. I think fans need to know. Kenny Sanders is his cousin. Kenny's the director of player personnel at Penn State. Luke Kromenhoek too, quality quarterback, currently committed to Florida State. James Franklin went and watched him during the bye week play a game in Georgia. So he's a 3-star guy right now, but somebody that's consistently moving up. I could see him as a 4-star here soon. So a lot of guys, though, man, I can go all day. There's a big contingent from Philadelphia. Tysier Denmark, he's going to end up committing here next month. We'll see how that shakes out. Emilio Agard's a top a 4-star guy from St. Joseph's Prep, a cornerback prospect that everybody's always asking about. So, I mean, this list was ridiculous, man. I didn't even mention Sam Piloff, really good linebacker out of Wisconsin. Sam Williams-Dixon, another really good running back. There's the Devontae and Deontay Armstrong from St. Edward. So, I think we could just do a podcast on this list, to be honest.
Well, to save you from doing that, we can move on then. Would there be any names that Penn State fans should know? Obviously, really far away at this point, but anyone younger than that, like 25, 26, like any names that we should look out for?
Yeah, so there were a dozen guys at the Whiteout game for 2025 who hold an offer. A couple, Anthony Sacca, Tony Sacca, of course. I think most Penn State fans know who that is. That's his son, Anthony. He's a sophomore at St. Joseph's Prep. Listed as a linebacker, playing safety. He's a pretty big player. So just really curious to see, how Anthony grows and progress. I think right now we have him at just under 6'3", 215, and he's a sophomore. So
wow.
Just, he's playing safety, right? And he wants to keep playing safety, but those numbers say he's going to probably grow into a linebacker. So that'll be curious. A couple other guys too. Brennan Johnson's a good linebacker out of Highland Springs that was there. Brett Clatterball came up in the summer and had a very good workout with the staff. He holds an offer. They offered Cutter Boley. I don't really know a lot about Cutter, but he's a good quarterback prospect out of Kentucky. He was, I think, the one guy who left State College with an offer this weekend. He's ranked, I think, 46 in the nation in the On3 consensus ranking. So, a lot of other guys too, man. Ryan Montgomery is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Problem is his brother Luke's committed to Ohio State, so we'll see how that plays out. I think Latsier Brooks, running back out of Millville, New Jersey, who was also up, he's not rated yet by On3, but I think people are going to learn how good he is here in the coming weeks and months. At one point, there was talk about him wanting to commit to Georgia really early. He didn't do that, but I could see him being a top 100 guy. So, like I said, about a dozen or so 2025 guys. I didn't mention Deshaun Burnett, who's a really good linebacker out of Pittsburgh. Jeff Exenor is he's not the next denied Dennis Sutton, but he's the next top prospect to come out of McDonough. And we've seen McDonough has been a pipeline for Penn State. So, like I said, about a dozen or so 2025 guys there in attendance with a scholarship offer. And I would be remiss to not mention the two freshman guys that I really like already. Messiah Mickens, he plays at Trinity in Camp Hill, which is where I'm at now, coached by Jordan Hill, by the way.
Oh,
and then
I
Marquez.
didn't know that.
Yeah, Jordan Hill is the head coach at
That's
Trinity
awesome.
now here in Camp Hill. I went and watched them play Steel High the other night. It was an awesome game. They lost in overtime, but it was really fun to watch Messiah Mickens for the first time. He holds a Texas A&M offer, which, as a freshman, I don't know what a Texas A&M offer means at this point, obviously. And that's not I put my mic there. That's not just to Messiah. Like, that's for all freshmen, right? Like, what is an offer at this stage? Yeah. But clearly Elijah Robinson, who has a relationship with Jordan, I'm not sure if that's part of it or whatnot, but early offer there for Messiah. And then Marquez Wimberly too. I just want to mention him out of Parkland. Home of Austin Scott from back in the day, a really good running back prospect. He went out to Eugene, Oregon in the summertime and was in those like junior Nike National track and field. And I think he won the long jump or something like that. My point is he's a really good athlete, still like 14 or so. But I think in 2 or 3 years, we're going to be talking about Messiah Mickens and Marquez Wimberly a lot.
So I think one of the questions that, the casual recruiting follower on Twitter will always ask coming out of the Whiteout weekend.
Let me guess. Who's going to commit?
Exactly. or you'll hear him say like, well, why didn't anyone commit this weekend? I think the obvious answer, one, is that, the Penn State coaching staff, like their main priority during that weekend is the game. Right.
Right.
And then you have the fact that all these kids are in the middle of their high school seasons. So, there's a lot of reasons why commitments don't happen during the Whiteout. Mm-hmm. But is there anybody that you feel in any class that you feel maybe was, nudged closer to that point by the Whiteout?
Yeah. So one thing I'd say is I think Lamont Payne is the only player to commit Whiteout day. And that was like set up ahead of time, right. They were like, okay, Thursday, you're going to come out here. We're going to make a thing out of it. I mean, they do that all the time. So I think that's the only commitment that's ever happened, like at least since I've been covering it over the last 12 years or so. So the guys who grabbed my attention, who were here this past weekend, two of them, Kevin Haywood, offensive lineman out of Archbishop Wood. Sean and I both have, we call them RPM picks. Cristobal, same thing as 24/7. We have picks in for him already. I feel like Haywood. Well, I feel like Haywood's going to end up at Penn State regardless. I mean, coming. I think his sister's already here or about to be here. Just kind of grew up a Penn State fan, things like that. I mean, everything is pointing in that direction. He just earned a 4-star rating, by the way, number 183 in the nation. So a lot to like there. And by the way, he's 6'7", 280. So no one can argue whether he's a tackle or not. Excuse me. So from that perspective, I think he's in a good position. And then the guy who, if there's someone who's going to commit soon, I'm starting to think it might be Jalen Harvey, Quince Orchard, high school, 2024 defensive end, another 4-star guy. We have him at 254 in the On3 consensus. I think he's 264 in On3. So pretty similar ratings there. But was up for Northwestern, came up last weekend for Minnesota. And guess what? He's coming back this weekend for Ohio State. So you got back-to-back visits there. Everybody I talked to says he's in no rush or anything, but like he'll probably be a story I have written Saturday morning, just in case something happens there. So keep an eye on, keep an eye on Jalen Harvey. And then one other guy who Sean and I have picks in for, Dominic Nichols out of Oakdale High School in, I think it's like Frederickville or Fredericksburg, Maryland, one of those towns. Another 4-star guy. Dominic wasn't able to make it up this past weekend. I think he got like a concussion or something like that in his game. So he wasn't able, he was supposed to be here, didn't make it up, but all signs really kind of point to Penn State here. I feel like early 2023, maybe even later this year would make the most sense. So keep an eye on him to help get that 2024 class going. So Jalen Harvey, 4-star defensive end out of Quince Orchard. Kevin Haywood, 4-star offensive lineman out of Archbishop Wood. Dominic Nichols, 4-star defensive end out of Oakdale in Maryland. Those are the three that I think hopefully by the next time we're doing this podcast together, those guys will end up being committed.
Awesome. So Ryan, before we get you out of here then, so you can continue your never ending quest to track down info, curious just to pull to this year's team a little bit and look at that freshman class. We talked about how highly that class was rated, that 2022 class. Biggest surprise to you so far from the freshmen, from the current true freshmen from that 2022 class? Like whether biggest surprise because they're not playing or how much they're playing or how well they're playing.
Omari Evans stands out just because, I thought Omari was a good player. Just the way he was kind of, I don't want to say out of late, but just kind of, had a good season, kind of wasn't a guy we were following for a long time, right? So he wasn't a guy that I had a lot of info on. Got to know him a little bit towards the end there. But I don't, compared to a Deny or an Aller or Singleton, who we watched and saw for years and every day, just seeing how much of a good take that was, or a good find that was, that kind of stands out to me because, I think if you had to pick guys, we would have been picking like Caden Saunders, who's doing well, by the way. I don't want to people think Caden Saunders isn't living up to expectations, because he is, but just a little bit of a surprise, I guess you would say. I have to go to Vega Ione, who's out from your way out there in Washington. We got to see him this past weekend, make some nice blocks in that Minnesota game. I think Drew Shelton has the highest potential, but Vega, I don't know. I'm starting to wonder. Those two both look like, man, they're going to be serious impact guys. And I'd be remiss
that dude Drew could not be from the more middle of nowhere too.
Really?
I truly don't understand how he got on their radar. I really don't. Aside, I know Stubblefield's Washington guy, but still.
Right. I'd be lying if I said I knew a whole lot either. It was one of those like 2-3 weeks, comes out for a visit. He visited I think a week before signing day. I think it was Washington. There was one other school in the mix, but it was just like a boom, boom, boom. And, it's just like give credit to obviously Stubblefield, who, keeps an eye on that area. Give credit to Troutwine as well for this find. And Troutwine, I think Troutwine flew all the way out there for an in-home visit, for just like a 2-hour in-home visit, and then flew all the way back. I think it was from Atlanta too. So you're talking total polar opposites there. And that in-home is what got the official, which is what got his commitment too. So, these coaches work incredibly hard, right? And just seeing literally someone fly across the entire country to do a 2-hour visit and then fly all the way home, all within the same day. It's 9 hours flying. It's crazy. But it got them a hell of a player from what things look like. So Vegas stands out. I think Drew Shelton, we knew Drew Shelton was good, but just the weight he put on when he got here was because he was an early enrollee, has been really impressive. I remember Sean and I were out at the 7-on-7 this past year, and Drew was out there helping with that camp. And, I don't want to say he looked like a different player, but just the amount of how physically well he developed in just a handful of months, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 months, was really standing out. And he's getting a lot of really good reviews too. So I think everybody knows about Aller's potential. I think everybody knows about Nick Singleton's potential, Denai's potential, and even Drew to some degree too. We talked about him a lot, but certainly Vega stands out a lot to me, and Omari Evans and his progression, I think, is a really positive sign.
Awesome. So Ryan, just going to give you a little moment to riff here and, tell everyone what's the best way to find you, Twitter handle, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I put my Twitter handle on the screen. I learned T Frank taught me that to do that. So Ryan Snyder at On3, to follow us on Twitter. Appreciate you guys. And really, Sean, you guys, I'm sure many of you guys have followed Sean over the years. Sean and I have been competitors for the longest time, but we've also been very good friends behind the scenes. And, the opportunity to work together has been something that we want to do for a long time. And, we're very fortunate that Shannon Terry provide us that opportunity, here at On3. So of course, Nate Bauer's with me. Greg Pickle's one of my, I've worked with Nate my whole career, really good friend. And, Greg Pickle was somebody too, who I've been very close friends with for really my whole professional career. And to get him over, and then of course, T Frank's doing all of our YouTube stuff. I mean, our YouTube page has grown like 8 times what it was like over a year and a half ago. So, I think we have a hell of a team, and really we're just getting started. So really excited about it. Nick, appreciate you having me on and to preach and get things out there. And signing day is 7 weeks away. So I figure we'll probably catch up then.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, it's a pleasure having you. Love catching up. I know for the first time I was in the press box, I think, is when I first met you. But yeah, we've had a relationship for a while. You've been very helpful for me in my career. Always appreciated.
Of course.
Yeah, you've been a great friend, and it's awesome having you on the podcast because very, very, very few people in the world are as knowledgeable about recruiting as opposed to you.
I've done it long enough.
Yeah,
I've been chasing around 16-year-olds for 13 years now. I think I should have it figured out.
The most enviable job in the world, Ryan Snyder. Once again, big thanks for coming on. Thanks everyone for listening. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast wherever you get your podcast, be that Apple, Spotify, or wherever else. Make sure you're subscribed and hit the alert bell on the YouTube page as well, and leave us a 5-star review if you can. Much appreciated. For myself, Nick Pollock, for my guest tonight, Ryan Snyder, thanks for listening. Go State.